much like cancer, there is no one actual way to approach this overarching change in the United States. And a lot of what each individual person in the United States is going to be challenged with is what their relationship will be to it. And, you know, we have dealt in historical times with Hitler. And now that the world is well past Adolf Hitler, and all the people who were killed during that period of time, now that we see that from a spiritual perspective, we can also see what's going on in the United States from a spiritual perspective. He is not someone who is in any way prepared to do what he has to do. He is not prepared. He does not have the competence. But what he's doing is creating a support system with people who do not have the best interests of the country. His cabinet, his transitional team, his people are caught up in a groupthink mindset. Now, this isn't to say that President Obama didn't have a same kind of groupthink mindset, but when he took office, he was far more personally prepared to be the leader of a country. So what you're going to see is chaotic. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be a time of turmoil in the United States in that the conflicts are going to be revealed now. And this is a good thing, you know, much like after the quantum leap, when everything exploded and everyone's lives were set about in turmoil. This is not a bad thing, because many, many people in the United States are going to be awakened, are going to be sort of forced to understand what living in community means in a new way. People are going to be striving even more to create unity and peace because of the perceived threat of this government. But what you're going to see is the United States going into a kind of decline. What you might see, however, is in relation to the rest of the world, that the rest of the world is also going to have a kind of an awakening because of that, because of what's going on in the United States. Is that you're going to be able to look from afar and see what's happening, and you might be able to see the positive, powerful evolutionary change going on and not view it as the same as people who might be living within it. But we have to say it will have some of the same elements that Germany did have, same kinds of oppressions. But the good news is, again, is that the masses of people there are not going to be ignoring it. And that's when change can really happen, is when people begin to wake up to what is the truth, what is really happening, stop being victims, stop being in denial, stop living in a small world that only you can only see what's right in front of you and start to have a bigger picture and being forced into creative solutions. Now, we will say that in other areas of the United States, in technology, in individual sustainable energy, and even in the advancement of sustainable energy in a corporate way, these are still going to make strides. And and some people are going to be determined that the way they're going to fight the bad energy that's going to sort of be promoted to an even greater degree, that they're going to create enclaves where they create their own sustainable communities as a way to fight back against some of that. But you see, the United States has always been going towards this. This isn't him. He is just the byproduct of such a great amount of denial and unawareness of the collective consciousness of the people of the United States. And there are wonderful, compassionate, beautiful, creative, energetic, good people working for the good of the whole there. But the consciousness of the country has to wake up. Has to. And this is the way that it's going to take place. So you will see people becoming refugees from the United States. And you will see the United States become perhaps more equal to some of the rest of the world. What happens to the United States will be good for other parts of the world, in the sense of seeing a fairness, seeing sort of a karmic balance coming up. And out of this, there's going to be great invention that comes. There's going to be people coming together, more than ever committed to love and compassion. But it is a bumpy ride ahead. So all of the prayers and all of the love and that you can send to the collective consciousness of the world, of course, but to this leader as well, to help him as really the head of one of the most powerful entities on the planet, to make decisions for the good of the whole. Yes, we wish we could have, bright and chipper news, but again, why we are looking in a longer term perspective of how you're going to see the United States change over the course of the next 8 years, 10 years, 20 years, to adapt to what is necessary.
You told before that he was not prepared. Can you say something more about that? Is it because it was a surprise for him, or what was going on there?
Well, part of his participation in the election began as we wouldn't say it's a whim on his part, but he is a man who is very isolated in a particular kind of world. And that world that he lives in is really out of touch with some of the realities of life. He's insulated by his wealth, and he's lost wealth and gained wealth in a way that he really never lost it. He is an egotist. He's detached from a part of his emotional place, and he deals with his emotions in a way that's detached from reality. Now, so when he got into the race, he had this sort of reality TV idea of what he was doing, because that's kind of the world he lives in, even in his businesses. You know, he builds these incredible, ornate, very expensive buildings that then he can't afford. And so when he loses that, it's just a challenge to go find more money that isn't really there, and that's part of what the world economy right now is sort of on this pond's eye of economics. It's right now. So he's detached to begin with, but when he got into it, he really did so partly for egotistical purposes, partly for a challenge, partly to, in his mind, he was going to uncover some of the bad things about the rest of the political scene, in the United States, whether it was the Republicans or it was the Democrats. He was going to uncover them and unearth them, and this was going to be something he'd never done. So, he got into it for those things, but he didn't actually prepare to win. And as he went on in his campaign, and he started to really see the nature of the collective, he himself was surprised. He had said this years before, that, people are collectively sheep, and, I could do anything. But as he got into it and he started to see that, he was quite surprised in many ways. But again, because he doesn't deal with emotion connected to it, it became adrenaline, adrenaline to see he could say something and then look at these people react, and that he could get support from the good people and the bad people, the racists and the Ku Klux Klan and the white supremacists, and then the everyday housewives, and then the business people. So it didn't matter to him. It was all just collective support for him. And we really do feel as if he was prepared to lose. And at some point in his campaign, several months before the election, he was trying to get out of it. He was trying to be so bad that they would remove him, or do something that made it impossible for him to go on, and he couldn't. And so, being the warrior that he is, he went full throttle. And when he won, there was a big shift. There was a sobriety that came upon him. Now, you didn't...
The whole world.
Yes, didn't see him breaking down and going, oh, what have I done? But you saw him in his language. You saw him in his body language when he was now here. This was not the response of someone who was prepared and who truly wanted to have these responsibilities. And so that truth is going to influence his decision-making processes. He'll be there you know. He'll have people around him, of course. That is, the president of the United States does not govern all by themselves. But now there are people that his party is pressuring him to take on, that he feels like he has no choice. And that's something he doesn't like. And so there's a lot of things that are coming to him that he's realizing that he might be the leader of the free world, but he does not have choices like the true head of a CEO of a company who started the company, can hire and fire. You know, he does not have that power anymore. So, yes, this is quite a time for him as well. And, you know, he sounded like a tyrant, but underneath all that, he is not a Hitler. He is not someone who would order the mass execution of people. He would not do that. That may be something that happens within the context of the group that is now in control. But him as an individual, that's not what he would sign up for. Now, his talk about rounding up people who are immigrants or what have you it's a talking point. It's an issue that the United States has had to deal with, and it's a very complicated issue because of the times, because of, you know, who are these immigrants, what is the immigration policy of the United States right now. It is one that's very, very much about rounding people up and putting them in jail and sending them away already. So he's inherited a system of suppression and security, national security that a lot of United States citizens aren't aware of. They aren't aware of the kinds of suppression, the kinds of detainment, and the kinds of sort of fascist policies that are already in place. So he brings that forward. So that's revealing and educational for the citizens of that country to know. And now that they can know those things, then they can collectively come together to change them. But if you don't know that it's happening and you're sitting around thinking you have this beautiful policy that isn't really true, you can't really change it. So you see good, bad, and it's not, you know, there are going to be things that take place from Trump that aren't terrible things. But the collective body of the country, or individuals within the collective body of the country, it gets back to what we were saying to you. They will have the receptacle. Every single individual will be given the choice to what their relationship is going to be to this situation. And as was proven, people tend to coagulate like sheep. People tend to be blinded by mass media that is also controlled by a corporate message. And so more and more, those people who aren't will be working on those people who are, to get truth out, to get inspirational thinking out, to bring people together instead of thinking like sheep. So it's a very complicated change that's going on, and we think that there will be especially in the first perhaps 6 months of his presidency, that there'll be a lot of clarity about what direction the power around him will take. And he will be speaking more moderately. He will be saying things that are more reasonable and more palatable. But will people be paying attention to what's going on beneath it? And that will be the challenge. There are also alliances that he has in the world that will be beneficial to the United States, but not as the other party sees it, because those alliances transcend the global power structure. They go against what that global sort of financial power structure wants. It wants to keep those people apart, and he will transcend that. So it's not a terrible thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's a thing that is necessary at this time. And we feel if people in the United States will work together on what's important on the ground floor, that you're going to be able to see some progress in developing a new power structure in the country. But it is, as you say, very risky for him right now. But what will be prohibitive, oddly enough, are the people who oppose him because of the racist revelations that you're seeing. You see, people will cut off their nose to spite their faces because of one issue, and they won't be able to accept that this progress that he's making economically is really part of it. So the people have issues.